Mom, I can't live like this anymore. Ethan and his mom barely let me eat. This sudden SOS call came from my once happy daughter, Eliana. Eliana, come back home. I instinctively shouted. Eliana had become worryingly thin. I won't forgive Ethan and his mother. I resolved with determination. I'm Jonna, a 50-year-old housewife. My husband, James, is 52 and a company employee. Our daughter Eliana is turning 26. After graduating from college, she landed a job at a major corporation and started living alone. James and I were enjoying our life as a couple after Eliana moved out. Although Eliana was successful in her job, she was shy around men and hesitant in relationships. So, when she got a boyfriend, James and I were overjoyed. James kept urging Eliana to bring him over, asking, "What's he like? Bring him home sometime." I cautioned James, "Honey, don't push her. She'll introduce him when she's ready. Let's wait patiently." Eliana just smiled. Soon, Eliana said she'd bring Ethan over. She playfully told James, "Dad, you kept insisting, so I complained to Ethan. He agreed to come over to meet you. But don't say anything weird to Ethan, okay?" James was visibly delighted. When Ethan came to greet us, James and I were nervous. However, Ethan's friendly conversation soon eased our tension. Ethan introduced himself to James and me. "Hello, I'm Ethan Smith, and I'm seriously dating Eliana with the intention of marrying her." Eliana blushed and said, "Marrying? Ethan, you're embarrassing me. You said it was just a casual greeting." James happily told Eliana, "No, it's great that he's thinking about the future. Ethan, I entrust Eliana to you." Their relationship progressed smoothly with our blessing, and Ethan proposed formally 5 months later. Seeing a blushing but happy Eliana made both James and me very happy. I heard Ethan worked for a major bank system company. James and I discussed how their future seemed secure. As wedding preparations began, Eliana frequently sought advice. One day, Eliana asked me, "Hey, Mom, how much is the market price for a wedding ring? Ethan is planning to buy one for about $10,000. Surprised, I replied, "For wedding rings, maybe about $2,500 each for the couple. I've heard engagement rings are around $3,500. Eliana seemed a bit uneasy. "Right. I thought so too after asking around and reading magazines." I felt Ethan's sense of money was odd. However, when Eliana said, "Ethan insists it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing and wants me to have something nice," I conveniently interpreted it as Ethan wanting to give her a special gift. After some time, the two moved out of their bachelor's residence and moved into a condominium in New York. The area was very expensive, but very convenient for commuting. I was a little concerned and said to Eliana, "Hey, Eliana, the area you and Ethan live in must be pretty expensive to rent, right? Are you going to be able to afford the monthly payments?" She reassured me, "Don't worry, Mom, Ethan's working hard, and I earn a decent salary too. His job requires living near the bank." Ethan was a systems engineer at a bank-related systems company. If there is a problem, Ethan needs to rush to the site, even in the middle of the night. That's why the location had to be close to the bank, within a short taxi ride, apparently. Eliana explained, "Ethan's company gives us substantial housing allowance, so we're fine. Don't worry, Mom." Not fully understanding the system company's situation, I just accepted it as how things are. Months passed, and I invited Eliana for lunch. Before her marriage, Eliana and I often went for lunch together. However, after her marriage, when I invited her to join me, she often declined my invitation, saying that she was busy with work or had made other plans. James suggested that maybe she's just busy with her married life, but it didn't seem like Eliana was avoiding me. Over the phone, Eliana said, "Next Saturday." "Oh, that's when Ethan is on a business trip." "Sure, Mom, I can make it. I'll find a place for us." I was a bit thrilled to have lunch with my daughter after half a year. When I finally saw Eliana, she looked a bit pale. I was concerned and said, "Eliana, what's wrong? If you're not feeling well, take it easy, just stay home and rest, okay?" Eliana reassured me, "No, I'm fine. I've just been tired from all the overtime lately. Plus, lunch with you might be just what I need to unwind." She managed a weak smile. We then enjoyed a good chat, just the two of us. About 2 hours in, Eliana's phone rang. She looked shocked when she saw the display. Eliana told me, "Mom, I have to go home already. Ethan's mother is calling." Eliana explained that Ivy was at their place. Surprised, I said, "Sorry for keeping you during such a busy time. It's okay, you can hurry back." Apologizing, Eliana quickly left. Another half year went by, and during this time, something terrible happened to Eliana. I learned about it from a phone call from her. It was a Saturday, and James and I were enjoying our day off. While I was making herbal tea, suddenly, my phone rang. The phone's display showed Eliana. I quickly answered. Eliana hesitantly started, Mom, it's me, hi how?" She seemed unable to continue. Sensing something was wrong, I asked, "What's the matter? Did something happen?" Eliana remained silent for a while. Patiently, I waited for her to start talking. Eventually, she said, "Mom, I can't live like this anymore. Ethan and his mom barely let me eat. I might not survive if this continues." Shocked, I asked, "Are you okay? Sounds like things are really bad. Why don't you come back home?" Eliana seemed undecided. I firmly told her, "If you're feeling unwell, you can't just sit around. Eliana, come back home. We'll talk it over when you get here." Eliana responded, "Really? Can I come back? But I don't have any money, I can't leave." I thought this was strange. Eliana was earning a decent salary, but there was no time for a long discussion. Her situation sounded serious. First, I need to meet with Eliana to see how she is doing. I told Eliana, "Take only your valuables with you, and leave the house. There is a convenience store near your apartment, right? I will drive there and pick you up. Wait for me there." Sobbing, Eliana agreed. So, James and I hurried to the convenience store. When we arrived, Eliana was crouched in the parking lot. When she saw me, and said, Mom, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this." She broke down and cried. I hugged Eliana, and together with James, we helped her into the car. She was terribly thin, and almost gray in complexion. What could have happened to her? I was astonished. I held Eliana until she stopped crying. James said to me, "She will not be able to calm down here. Let's take her home soon, and give her a good rest. We need to talk to Ethan." I agreed with James. Yes, right now, letting Eliana rest is our top priority. When we arrived home, Eliana, possibly due to exhaustion, immediately fell asleep on the sofa. After she woke up, I served her some easy-to-eat food. She ate voraciously in front of us. She must have been very hungry. It was shocking to hear her stories about not being allowed to eat and having no money. I asked Eliana, "What do you mean you're not allowed to eat?" Eliana explained, "My salary is lower than Ethan's, so Ethan and his mom, Ivy, keep telling me to save more." Gradually, my food portions were reduced. I asked, "Really? But you're making the food, right? Because you're a married couple, Ethan and you eat the same food, right?" Eliana shook her head. "No, for the past 6 months, Ivy has been cooking Ethan's meals. I'm not even allowed in the kitchen." James asked Eliana, "Ivy is in your house. This is the first time I'm hearing about this. Does this mean Ivy is staying there all the time?" Eliana explained that Ivy had moved in with them about 6 months ago, and they started living together gradually. Right around the time Eliana and I had lunch, Ivy had an argument with her husband and came to stay with Ethan for just a week. But then Ethan got mad at his father and told Ivy she could stay indefinitely. I was shocked and glanced at James, who seemed to feel the same. Eliana continued, "Since then, Ivy has been criticizing my budgeting, saying it's all wrong and that I can't manage money at all." After Ivy criticized the budget, she took control of the household finances. Moreover, Ethan did not oppose Ivy at all and instead joined her in blaming Eliana. Now Ivy controlling Ethan's and my entire salary. Eliana said. Ivy saw Eliana's payslip and demanded she work more, including overtime. Ivy told Eliana, "Your salary is much lower than Ethan's. Leave the housework to me and work more. How about doing more overtime?" Ethan also told Eliana, "Yes, that's right. I agree with more overtime. It's nice to have my mom doing the housework. You're lucky, Eliana." Ivy scrutinized Eliana's pay slips, always looking for unnecessary expenses, and eventually found something else to criticize: the cafeteria deductions. Eliana's company has a cafeteria, and lunch costs are deducted from her salary. Ivy told Eliana, "You're spending too much on lunch. I'll make you a lunch box from now on. Stop eating at the cafeteria." Eliana's attempts to argue were met with attacks from both Ivy and Ethan. Eliana confided, "Whenever I try to speak up, Ivy and Ethan gang up on me. It never ends up being a calm discussion." Eliana said something, but they are suppressed by Ivy and Ethan. Now, Ethan and Ivy control all of Eliana's salary, leaving her with almost no money of her own. When Eliana wanted to go to the hair salon, Ivy called it extravagant and reluctantly gave her money. Ivy also complained about Eliana's makeup being too expensive, telling her to buy cheaper products. Eliana can't even buy new clothes, but Ivy never complains about Ethan's spending. Ethan seemed to spend money lavishly. Eliana told me the other day Ethan bought a branded watch. He told me that because of his job, he would be treated like an idiot if he didn't wear something decent. Ethan has a reckless way of spending his money. Eliana began to sob as she recalled these painful events. James and I listened in disbelief. Then Eliana's phone rang. She flinched and turned pale. I instinctively answered the phone for her. It was Ivy. "Doe. Isn't this Eliana's phone? Why is Johnny answering?" Ivy asked. I told Ivy, "Hello, it's been a while. Eliana is not feeling well. I can talk to you on her behalf." Ivy said, "Is that so? Well, all right. Could you tell Eliana to come back home soon?" I replied, "Unfortunately, I can't do that. Eliana is unwell. She'll stay here until she recovers." Ivy retorted, "You're coddling her too much. As a mother, you should educate Eliana properly. She can't manage a budget or do household chores. It's always one problem after another." Struggling to find the right words, I remained silent. Then Ivy changed the topic, asking, "So, Eliana will be commuting to work from your home?" I replied, "Yes. Considering her health, we'll need to discuss this with her company, but for now, she'll be commuting from here." Ivy then said, "Please tell Eliana to return as soon as she's well." I responded, "Excuse me, Ivy, but I think it's necessary for us, including Ethan, to have a discussion about the future living arrangements." Ivy snorted and said, "Fine. We can talk anytime," before hanging up. I couldn't understand why Ivy was so confident, but at least Eliana was safe for now. We needed to focus on her health and feelings and plan our next steps. That night, after Eliana went to sleep, James and I discussed the situation. The next day, Eliana was examined at a hospital. As expected, she was underweight and not sleeping well. After talking with her, we decided she should take a leave of absence from work. She enjoyed my cooking, saying it was delicious. I asked her, "What were you eating while living with Ethan? What kind of meals did Ivy prepare for you?" Then Eliana said, "My mother-in-law only cooks for Ethan and herself. I always had bread ends. At a local bakery, they sell bread ears very cheaply. That's what I used to eat." I was shocked. Eliana had been deprived of proper meals while Ivy and Ethan ate normally. "Just bread ends? Since when? What about your lunchbox? Didn't Ivy prepare that too?" I asked. Eliana should have been stopped from eating at the company cafeteria by Ivy. Since 3 months ago, my lunchbox was just bread ends in a container. I was embarrassed, so I ate secretly in the break room when no one was around. Eliana said Ivy would taunt her about not earning as much as Ethan, saying with her salary, bread ends were all she deserved. She had been living on just bread ends for 3 months. I was shocked. James, who heard everything, couldn't hide his surprise. Eliana, tired from talking, lay down to rest. James told me, "This is serious strange. We need to investigate further. If Ethan or Ivy calls again, buy some time. I'll gather more information." I told James, "Yes, I think this is going too far." Then, James and I began looking into Eliana's circumstances. I started by calling her work colleague, who said, "Recently, Eliana's been doing a lot of overtime and looked pale. She often declined after work drinks, saying she couldn't go because of her husband and mill." James also talked to Eliana's boss. Eliana's boss also mentioned, I've been concerned about Eliana lately because she's been doing too much overtime. She seemed desperate to work. Eliana's boss commented, Eliana is so conscientious, maybe she's been pushing herself too hard. I hope she recovers soon and comes back to us. Thanks to her boss's initiative, Eliana was granted the sickness allowance by her company. The allowance was 2/3 of her salary, but we were grateful to receive it. We decided to have the sickness allowance paid into a different account from her usual salary account. 2 weeks after Eliana returned home, Ethan called. He insisted, Eliana should be well by now. Please tell her to come back. When I looked at James, he answered the phone. James humbly requested Ethan, Eliana is not fully recovered yet. Please, let her rest for another week. Ethan told James over the phone, I guess there's no choice. Just 1 more week, okay? And then hung up. I protested to James, but she needs at least 3 more weeks to recover. And we don't know what they'll do to her if she goes back. James reassured me, don't worry, we won't stick to the 1-week timeline. They've treated her terribly, and we have a plan. He then asked Eliana, what do you want to do? If you want to try again with Ethan, we won't stop you. But if you want to leave him, we'll support you. Eliana, suddenly resolute, said, I've been thinking. Am I really as useless as Ivy and Ethan say? But this isn't right. They're just taking my money. I don't want this anymore. I want a divorce. James encouraged her, that's right. You've chosen your path well. We'll always be on your side. James shared the information he had gathered with us. We prepared for the possibility of Ethan coming over, ready to handle the situation. And 1 week passed. We didn't contact Ethan. 9 days later, Ethan and Ivy came to visit. When the doorbell rang, I checked the intercom and informed Eliana and James. James suggested, let's talk to them directly and settle this. Eliana nodded in agreement. Opening the door, we found Ethan and Ivy glaring at us. Calming myself, I greeted them warmly. Hello. What brings you here so suddenly? Ethan demanded, why hasn't Eliana returned home? It's been a week. You did tell her, right? Ivy also told me, that's right. You can't do your chores, you can't do your laundry, and you can't even keep your promise to come home. What a mess you are. Parents and children are helpless. I invited them in, saying, let's not talk in the doorway. Please come inside. Reluctantly, they entered. Eliana told them firmly, I won't return to that house. Ethan, please let's divorce. I can't live with you anymore. Ethan threatened loudly, you think you can just decide that? But Eliana stood her ground, facing Ethan with resolve. Ivy then berated Eliana, for 6 months, I did all the housework and supported Ethan while you neglected your duties. Eliana told Ivy, it's not that I didn't do the chores. Whenever I did, you would criticize my methods and take over the tasks, didn't you? Ivy retorted, how dare you speak to me like that after making me work so hard? You should be ashamed. I was only trying to correct your mistakes. Ethan joined in, that's right. My mother helped because you couldn't handle the chores, allowing you to focus on work. That's when James shouted at them, what nonsense. You took Eliana's salary and fed her only bread ends. Your actions are the worst kind of abuse. They were shocked by James's outburst. James added, Ethan, you have been fired from your company. I checked out your employment status. You don't have the power to continue paying the rent on that apartment anymore, do you? Ethan began to look uneasy. Eliana added, I didn't know until Dad told me. James continued, I hired a detective to find out. Ethan, you were fired 6 months ago for an affair with your boss's wife. Eliana accused Ethan, you pushed me to work because you lost your job and income. Ethan turned pale and hung his head. James then confronted Ivy, you have a shopping addiction and debts, right? You didn't leave your home due to a fight, but because you were divorced and had nowhere to go. Ivy, too, lost her composure and turned pale. James concluded, Ethan is being sued for alimony, and Ivy is being chased by debt collectors. They were trying to pass their debts on to Eliana. Eliana, trembling with anger. Eliana placed a piece of paper on the desk. Eliana said once and for all that let's divorce. I've filled out half of the divorce form. You complete it and submit it to the authorities. We'll communicate for lawyers from now on. Ethan, prostrating at Eliana's feet on the carpet, pleaded, "Please, don't say we should divorce. It was just a moment of madness. I was wrong to hide it from you. You're all I have, Eliana. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Ivy, also appealing to Eliana, cried, "I did all the housework and took care of everything, didn't I? I'm sorry. Please come back. I'll keep doing the chores." Eliana, looking at Ethan and Ivy, coldly said, "I'm fed up. Who would want to start over with you two? You hid what you did and exploited my salary. I don't want to see your faces." Ethan and Ivy were unable to move from their spot, crying inconsolably. James sternly told them, "The conversation is over. It's time for you to leave. If you don't, we have our ways to deal with it." Reluctantly, Ethan and Ivy stood up and left our home, defeated. Afterward, with the lawyer's help, Eliana and Ethan officially divorced. Of course, we filed for alimony from Ethan. In addition to hiding his affair, we also added the fact that Ethan did not provide adequate meals to Eliana in the alimony claim. We had a doctor's diagnosis, which served as conclusive evidence against Ethan. Ethan had to move out of the apartment and live in a cheaper one with Ivy. Now, he's working day and night to pay the alimony to Eliana, and Ivy, not working, has become the target of Ethan's anger, and they constantly fight. Our lawyer informed us about Ethan and Ivy's current situation. Eliana fully recovered and returned to work. Eliana seems to be enjoying her work more than ever. She apologized to me and James, "I'm sorry for being a divorcee and coming back home. Thank you for all your help with the divorce. I'll be staying here for a while." I hugged her, saying, "Divorce doesn't matter. The fact that you're alive and well is all that matters to us." James added, "Don't overdo it. You're a hard worker, and sometimes you keep things to yourself too much." Eliana admitted, "I should have talked to you both sooner. I tried to handle too much on my own." Seeing Eliana's smile return was truly heartwarming. And James, who stood by us and fought against Ethan and Ivy, proved to be incredibly reliable. I fell for him all over again. When I told him, he joked, "Then, how about showing your gratitude with food? Make my favorite pork cutlets tonight." As a family, we've overcome difficulties and will surely face more in the future. But with James and Eliana by my side, I want to support each other as a family. Don't talk to me every single time. If a husband were to say something like this without any hesitation, I wonder how a worldly wife would respond. In the past, I might have just gone silent, but now, I'll say it loud and clear. Saying something like that, I don't care if you regret it. Today, I want to share my bitter experience with you. My name is Luna, and I'm 44 years old. I spent my 20s and 30s working as an insurance saleswoman, living the life of a career woman, and before I knew it, I was over 40. I met my current husband when I was 43. He also worked in the insurance industry, so we hit it off. With that, I became a full-time housewife. This was my husband's request. With my salary alone, the two of us should be able to get by just fine, right? You don't need to work so hard. I had been working tirelessly for almost 20 years since graduating from college, so becoming a full-time housewife was unexpected, but life is truly unpredictable. While my husband did have a good income, his demanding job meant he couldn't help much with household chores. My job was just as demanding, with frequent overtime and business trips. After discussing it, we decided that I would be the one to focus on the household. I'm glad to have you at home, Luna. From now on, please take care of things. Of course, I will. Please take care of me too. It was a late marriage for both of us. We didn't have the passionate feelings of our youth, but we were living reasonably happily. I would wake up 30 minutes earlier than my husband, prepare breakfast, and after he went to work, I would do the cleaning, laundry, shopping, and prep for dinner. Despite being a workaholic, I found that I didn't get bored when I entered the world of house chores. If you really dive into house chores, you can push it to the limit. When I made my own detergent and meticulously cleaned every nook and cranny of the house, it felt like it had just been built. And as for cooking, if I put in a lot of effort to make delicious food for my husband, it felt like I could make something even better than what was sold in stores. My husband always seemed happy when the house was clean and the food was delicious, and I truly felt that getting married was the right decision. But when did things start to change? It was triggered by something trivial. My husband came home looking unusually tired, and I greeted him with a smile and said, "Welcome home," just as usual. It was part of our routine. Normally, he would respond with a smile and say, "I'm home." But that day, he only replied in a low voice, "Ah." As I picked up my husband's undressed shirt and socks, I asked, "Which would you like, dinner or take a bath?" I asked him. "I'm tired right now. Can't you tell?" "Huh. So, don't bother asking questions like that when I'm tired." My husband said this with a very displeased expression. Did I say something strange? But looking at my husband, who furrowed his brow and seemed irritated, I felt that arguing with him wouldn't lead to a good outcome. "I'm sorry. I'll go prepare the bath, then." With that, I started to pour the hot water. He must have been really tired. Sometimes people feel like venting their frustrations. I remember that when I was working, I stumbled at work and blamed my partner at the time. It must be temporary. That's what I thought. Now that I think about it, it was my fault for being so clumsy at this point. My husband changed completely after that. Since then, he always seemed irritated at home. He's in his 40s and holds a middle management position. It's a tough period with pressure from both above and below. Now, all I can do as a wife is to maintain a peaceful and comforting home so that my husband can perform at his best at work. I tried various things, like preparing his favorite dishes, changing the bath salts daily to make bath time enjoyable, and making various efforts. But my husband's expression only grew more stern day by day. He eventually stopped responding even to my greetings. We've been married less than 6 months, and yet, we're already in a marital crisis. I attempted to talk to my husband. "Hey, what's wrong with you?" He remained silent and sipped on the slightly expensive Japanese tea I had served, still staring at the TV. "Is work tough? You've seemed tired lately." As soon as I said that, he slammed the teacup he was holding onto the floor. The matching teacup set we received as a wedding gift shattered noisily. "Shut up. Don't talk to me every single time." I saw my husband this angry for the first time. His eyes were wide, his face was flushed, and his body was trembling. As I tried to pick up the pieces of the teacup so my husband wouldn't get hurt, he looked down at me and said, "You're lucky, aren't you? You're always at home, relaxing, not thinking about anything. You're able to make a living because I work, right?" I couldn't say anything in response. "You don't know how hard I work outside, and every day is a good day for you. You are lucky that you married me. You become a housewife, like a parasite." The numerous mockings and insults that come out of my husband's mouth. It was my husband's request that I become a housewife, so why should he have to say that to me now? I mumbled at the allegations, which were too contradictory. "Are you drinking alcohol?" But my husband was completely sober. Ironically, I wished he had been drinking. I can't help but be terrified of my husband. You can say such cruel things without a second thought. Listen carefully. Don't talk to me from now on, all right? I'm tired from work. Just keep quiet and take care of the house. Got it. I remained silent, bowing my head. "Hey, did you hear me?" "Yes." And then my husband and I stopped talking to each other at all. I thought it would be a transient thing, but it was not. My husband began to treat me as if I didn't exist so that I wouldn't talk to him. When he comes home, he does not touch the food I cook but instead buys packed food at a convenience store or sometimes even goes out to eat. The only reasons he returned home were to change clothes and take a bath. And when he apparently had already taken a bath somewhere else, he would just crawl into bed as soon as he got home. I was here, but I was treated as if I weren't. For someone like me, who was struggling with my relationship with my husband, it was spiritually draining. As a full-time housewife, I had always thought it was my duty to take care of my husband, but he didn't even treat me as a human being anymore. My appetite dwindled, and I lost 5 kilograms. Sleepless nights continued, and I carried out household chores with a perpetually heavy body. Then, my husband said, "I'm hardly ever at this house, I don't eat here, and I don't use the bath, so there's no need for me to pay for living expenses and rent," and he stopped giving me even that. There was no way such reasoning could stand. But my attempts to argue were met with complete indifference. It was as if my words weren't even heard. Disgusted by my husband's behavior of acting as if I were invisible, and having had enough, I began using my savings to cover rent and living expenses. After living like this for about a month, I noticed something. Lately, my health had improved. I slept well, and my appetite returned. Upon closer examination, I realized that my husband would just come home, take a bath, and go to sleep. We even had separate bedrooms. If he wasn't going to eat the meals I prepared, I could simply make something light for myself and use the free time productively. Cleaning didn't need to be done every day when I was the only one at home during the day, and the laundry was also less when my husband spent more days without using the bath at home. What am I doing? It's almost like I'm living on my own. Realizing that, my heart suddenly felt lighter. Luckily, I had saved up enough over the nearly 20 years I had worked. Even if tens of thousands of dollars were flying out each month for living expenses and rent, I still had enough to live comfortably for another 10 years. In my spare time, I tried to study for certification exams and looked for work I could do from home, using the knowledge I had gained as an insurance diplomat from my previous job. Then I found a home-based job that would earn me about $300 a month. $300, huh? Well, if I can do it in my spare time, that's not bad. For me, it was more about making the most of my free time than the amount of my paycheck. The job involved explaining insurance plans to clients over the phone or video calls. I talked to clients designated by the headquarters, and using the provided materials, I explained the plan in a way that was easy to understand. I used to visit clients in person, but given the current situation, there was an increasing demand for such services to be offered remotely. Once I started working, I found it incredibly enjoyable. I had always enjoyed talking to people and lending a listening ear, so this job was a perfect fit for me. When I used to work as a diplomat, I would visit clients to make my quota. Every time I did that, I got a bad look or was turned away, but this job was easy to do with no such quotas. I guess I still have it in me. I remembered the feeling of being needed as a human being and became even more enthusiastic about my job. At first, my salary was only $300 a month, but as I increased my appointments, bookings, and contracts, it gradually went up, and now I can easily earn $600 a month. I was so absorbed in my work that I no longer thought about my husband. Then, one day, my husband came home unusually early, before dinner. Normally he would go home after 10 o'clock, but today it is only 7 o'clock. Did he come straight from work today? Well, I don't really care anymore. My husband let out an exaggerated sigh and then said to me, "Hey, dinner." He said it with a grumpy tone, almost like he was spitting it out, but I was deeply engrossed in reading the details of a new insurance plan I had received from the company, and I had no time to pay attention to my husband. "Hey," I said, "dinner. Are you deaf?" He raised his voice and approached me in a threatening manner. "But you see, I'm not the same person I used to be. I'm busy, you know." Surprisingly, a cold voice came out of me. Huh. My husband seemed so surprised that he couldn't say anything more. "So, I'm busy. Can't you see? I'm in the middle of work." My husband's expression suddenly turned into one of panic. Huh. "Oh, I see." He visibly broke into a cold sweat, and his lips trembled slightly. And I continued, "If you're hungry, prepare your own meal. I'm not free either." I said this and returned to my work, leaving my husband standing there alone. "Oh, sorry." My husband suddenly shrank like a borrowed cat. Perhaps to avoid bothering me, he quietly moved to the kitchen and served himself. He looked just like a thief cat, and I almost burst out laughing. After that day, my husband remained anxious throughout. "Luna, where is the soy sauce? It's on the dining table. You can see it if you look." "Doe, you're right. Sorry about that." I found it funny that my husband would say such things in a cat-like voice, as if he were trying to get a good look at my face. After that day, my husband remained anxious throughout, and for some reason, he started coming home early. I completely ignored him, no matter what time he came home. "Hey, Luna, dinner." My husband cautiously spoke again, as he looked at the unlit kitchen. "You said you don't eat at home. That's why I didn't make any." "Did I really say that?" Hada. Sweat started to form on my husband's face. He immediately pulled out a handkerchief from his pocket. I wondered what was so funny, but I realized it was a forced laugh to cover up the awkwardness. He must be aware of all the wrong he's done until now. With that in mind, I told him, "You told me I don't eat at home, and since I'm not even at home to begin with, I won't even pay the living expenses." What? Did you forget what you said? Are you okay? Are you already senile at your age? In the past, my husband would have strongly retorted, but I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Because I'm just telling the facts. I'm the one paying for the rent, utilities, and all the miscellaneous expenses in this house. And would you please refrain from eating or using things in the house without permission? But this is my home, isn't it? I say it as if to cover my husband's weak words. Your home. Don't make me laugh. How can you say it's your home without putting a penny in it? Yay. My husband collapsed on the spot, and for some reason, he was rubbing the floor with the handkerchief he had. Is he cleaning the floor? I almost burst out laughing at his inexplicable behavior, but I held it in. Then my husband said this in a low voice. "Luna, what's wrong with you? You were so kind to me. If you're cold to me, I can't live like this anymore." Can a grown man like him cry so miserably? He started sobbing like a little girl scolded harshly by her parents, tears streaming down his face. I love you, Luna, but it's so sad to be treated like this. Love. Those words make me feel sick. It seems like I have to make it clear to this insensitive man. How can you say such a thing after you have treated your wife so badly? You haven't forgotten what you did and what you said, have you? I told him this while giving my husband a contemptuous look. Like a lamb cornered by a lion, my husband began to tremble uncontrollably. But the words that came out were these: "I'm sorry. I admit that I took it out on you because I was busy at work and things were going wrong. But it was a really tough time for me." Saying this, my husband explained in detail about the difficult tasks he had been assigned at work and how he had been desperately trying not to be pushed out of the promotion race. "I'm going to change from now on. So, please forgive me. I'm like this." My husband bowed his head to the floor, begging for my forgiveness. So, was that floor scrubbing earlier just a way for me to apologize on my knees? I can't help but be strangely impressed by my husband's preparedness. "I only have you. Please." If it had been the old me, I might have forgiven him here. Just a little bit out of my mind due to work stress. Everyone goes through that, right? So, from now on, let's support each other as a couple, okay? But my foolish husband's misdeeds don't end here. I know everything, you know. I handed over the investigation report that arrived from the private detective agency this morning. It detailed my husband's another misdeed. Juria, 26 years old, a hostess working at the snack bar near the station. My husband tried to snatch away the investigation report I had, but he slipped on a handkerchief lying on the floor and fell spectacularly. "It seems you were very devoted to this person. I heard you hid your marital status from her and even approached her about marriage." Why did my husband suddenly become cold to me and come home late? It was because he had fallen for this hostess. My husband fell in love at first sight at a snack bar. He happened to stop by on his way to a company social gathering, and he frequented the bar often to make a strong appeal. However, she never really paid any attention to my husband from the beginning. Still, after continued efforts, they managed to start dating, and my husband often went to her house. He even had dinner and took baths at her place. However, when she found out through mutual acquaintances at my husband's workplace that he was already married, she immediately decided to break up with him. When my husband kept insisting, "I'm divorcing my wife," she told him, "If you ever come near me again, I'll call the police," and broke up completely. You just came back because you were dumped by that woman, didn't you? Don't make a fool of me. Who would stay with you? Ick. My husband seemed to hit a nerve. To my husband in that state, I handed over a piece of paper. "Here, please write this as soon as possible, and I'll also demand alimony for your affair." Divorce and alimony, that's not. My husband looked at me in a daze. Is there really no other way? Will I be all alone? And he started sobbing again. With no emotions left for this man, I just stared back at my husband in silence. You're disgraceful. If you didn't want a divorce so badly, why did you act that way? Why did you cheat? Pathetic man. Even if I'm pathetic, can't I have another chance? No way. Don't underestimate the world. My words hit my husband like a hammer, and he was completely knocked out. And the final blow. Please write this quickly. I want to become a stranger to you as soon as possible. My husband alternated between the divorce papers and me, displaying an expression of despair. Afterward, we divorced, with all the responsibility falling on my husband. In addition to my husband's numerous words and actions, along with the affair, I was able to claim a substantial amount of alimony. The teacup that my husband threw and broke, the diary I kept, and the investigation report from the credit agency. All the evidence was on my side. Furthermore, it seems that my husband was also demanded alimony by his mistress, who was his affair partner. She was afraid that she might be sued by me, but when I learned that she could avoid liability if she did not know that he was a married man, and that she could claim alimony, she demanded it from him through her lawyer. Who would have thought of such a cunning move? The alimony issue and the messy divorce drama with his wife became a topic of conversation at his company, and he was completely ousted from the race for promotion. Well, it serves him right. If you do bad things, they will come back to haunt you. It was truly a case of karma in action. After that, I did quite well in the insurance work I was doing from home and was hired as a full-time employee. Despite my age, I had a career as an insurance agent, and my own motivation was recognized. After ending my married life, I returned to being a career-oriented person. However, I do not consider the past year to have been a waste. Life is a lot of things, and I never get tired of it. I consider it an experience that gave me wisdom for seeing through the true nature of such a despicable man. Insurance is important, you know. You never know what will happen in life. My words, coming from someone with experience in divorce, seem to resonate with customers and lead to contracts. I live every day to the fullest, as if those days of agony were just a distant memory.